All right, we're back. We're back. Busy week.
Let's roll.
We got our great guest here, Scott Martin, to talk some Shore Conference football. Get that rolling today, as it's becoming a big week. I called it the mid-season kind of update because that's about where we are mid-season, other than the playoffs. So it's kind of like not quite mid-season, but around it. But a lot of things have been going on in the Shore Conference football, and no better person to have on Scott Morton from Shore Sports Report and really talk Shore, the Shore Sports Network and talk all the different things that are going on in the Shore. It's great to have you on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me back. It was fun last time, so anytime you want me.
No problem. So let's talk. I'm just curious. This is my take on it, I guess. But the top three teams that I have looked so far as look like RBC, TR Toms River North, and Rumson. And then there's a host of teams that are in the next group that are kind of vying for the top. What have you seen so far as this played out the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I mean, Toms River North, I had them as number one preseason coming in. They're just, unbelievable. Obviously, we talked about TJ Valeria last time. I think they should even be a higher state ranking at this point. I mean,
I think they get the knock because they're public, dude. I think that's always going to be a knock on it.
Yep, that's it. And so, I mean, they're legit. They're looking at putting together something for a three-peat this year. So it's very possible. So we'll see what they can do as long as they stay healthy and keep their guys going. There's no question marks there. And I don't want to call this a question mark, but it's more of with Point Borough only losing by 3 points to them. Is that showing how good Point Borough is becoming at this point?
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a question mark because we have them pretty high. They've got 2 losses, but their losses are Rumson and Toms River North.
Right.
So,
where do you have Point Borough ranked at this point?
So Borough, we got North, Rumson, RBC, and then Borough's like on that cusp. I still have 4, but you got Brick Memorial that's really rearing its head too. As
big win against Donovan last week.
Yeah. So that win against Donovan really kind of elevated him. And I know Donovan's down. Everybody will be like, oh, Donovan's down. But, I mean, their only loss is North.
Still a private school against a public school, buddy. Like I'll say that any day of the week. Like it's still a private school against a public school. Smaller school. Yeah, I believe it was at Donovan too, correct?
It was at Donovan.
I have always been a part, like that is a thing to me. When you go into someone's place, like on the road, home games, some people are like, oh, that doesn't matter. Like that stuff to me really matters, man. Like playing on the road, I don't care how good a team is. There's just a lot of moving parts with a high school team that a lot of people don't know the behind the scenes parts of it, right? Like the riding on a bus or like remembering your equipment. Like the little things like this in high school football happen, dude. Like I've been a part of games where guys forgot the ball bag. Like it's just that stuff going on. Student sections are now a very big part of not just the Shore Conference, but I think overall with social media and all that other kind of stuff, there's not a game you go to where there's not some type of theme or something going on. High school football, you got senior nights, homecomings, all this other kind of crazy stuff when you're on the road that just like throws teams off. You're sitting are you in a locker room? One thing I've noticed about the Shore, every away team locker room is 5 miles from the field. Like it's just whether they do it on purpose or that's it. Like, the walk is ridiculous. Like I don't know if that's a Shore thing, but being on the road, I think matters. And I don't know if a lot of people take that into account.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. That's kind of, why there's the extra plus in Brick Memorial's column. The only thing about that game that I saw was they were up, but then Donovan did kind of give a little bit of a comeback to it. So they got to figure that out and make sure they know how to close a game. But I mean, I love what Coach Curry's doing over there. I mean, he's he's just a
Guy's
phenomenal.
been there a long time. He's really putting together a really good program. Like, I mean, we saw them week 1. They were an absolute hammer. The kid Talmadge, to me, is a freak of nature. The kid is tough. I mean, he plays phenomenal football. And I don't know him from a hole in the wall, but the kid, I believe he's a very good wrestler as well.
He is, yeah.
So, I mean, look, you high school football, the quarterback, great. Like, he's a very good quarterback. Like, he slings that thing all over, only a junior. But, like, I think they're just going to continue to win and do very well. And, you know, like I said, going into hostile territory, that's a big win for them. I definitely could see them in the cusp of, like, top 5-ish, 6, 5, somewhere around there. And then, like you said, Rumson, like – Dave, it's just the classic Rumsons. Like, the quarterback, that kid, O'Toole, I believe is his name.
Yeah,
he's a stud, absolute stud. And he just plays Rumson football. But if they actually let him sling it around, like even more so, people would really see how good of a full-blown quarterback he is.
Yeah, if they dropped into one of those like Big 12 style offenses and just passed every time, he'd be throwing for 500 yards. But
easily,
you got a running back like Kellen Murray who does the job just as well. There's no need to put so much pressure on one guy. And that's where I see that the best teams is not having that one guy. It's that balanced approach. It's all the way through. It's the O-line, it's the D-line. Those guys never get mentioned, but that's what makes a winning program. That's the
Tom's River North. It helps having a 5-star, one of the best offensive linemen in the country on your roster, but it also helps having other guys to spread the ball around, right? Like, you have a bunch of receivers and backs. The Ford kid is, I mean, you know, it's hard to fill in the footsteps of your brother, but he's doing a freaking pretty good job. You know what I mean? Even Point Borough has numerous guys that can make plays, even within that offense itself, right? Like, there's not, like you said, it's the offensive, defensive lines. To me, I'll always be a firm believer in the fact that you win up front, right? Like, that's just how it is. If you can't push people around and you can't dominate the line of scrimmage, doesn't matter who you have as a skill guy. And we see that all the way up into the NFL. That's just kind of part of it. So I think, like, the guys that will succeed moving forward, especially when it gets late in the season, starts to get cold. Nobody wants to get hit in the cold. If you can win up front and you can play defense, you're going to win in November and December.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think the teams that have there to me in the Shore Conference, there are teams that have a different level of talent relative to other teams. There's basically 3, maybe 4 levels of talent on their rosters, you know. And just kind of the nature of how Shore Conference is with their smaller schools. There's mid-sized schools, they're big schools, and then there's like traditional powers, right? So the only traditional power that's really struggling this year, I think, is Mid-South, but Mid-North obviously has emerged where that was, so they're 4-0. But you know, you look at the Mid-North's big test is obviously tonight to me, because Vianney is a good team. They've got some really good skill players. And they've lost a couple of close games. I looked at first that Vianney was like may just roll their schedule, but that obviously changed with the Wall game. And then obviously Manalapan, who's always obviously a hard-nosed program, excellent coach, pulled out a win in overtime. So that I think that North game is going to tell you like where both Vianney and North is, right? If North wins that game, I think North is really going to be a force to be reckoned with if they win the game tonight. And if Vianney wins the game tonight, then I'll kind of be more back on board. I think they could have a really good year from a program standpoint. So, but I think to me overall, just from what I've seen early on, those 3 teams, and then I agree with you. I think Point Borough, even though they have 2 losses, is probably really the 4th team. Just because you could see that scores don't dictate everything. I get that. You got to play people, you know what I mean? And obviously that's important. But you could see just from like a kind of scoring standpoint, top 3 teams and what they've been able to do. And then obviously Point Borough's been the one team that's hung with those 2 of those 3 top teams, right? So I think that's so far been that case. And then some of those other teams like Mid-North, and Brick Memorial could begin, in some of their second half of the games of the season if they keep winning to maybe be in that class as well, right? So, although I don't know, Mid North doesn't play. I guess they play Mid South at the end of the year. That's the traditional game, but Thanksgiving game. But they don't play any of those teams like Rumson. Yeah, I don't think they do. But yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the mix, and Brick Memorial I think is pretty high. They might be like 2 or something in the state ranking, the state group.
They're up there
for their section, and North is like 8 or something like that. So there's a lot of teams in the Shore that obviously right now, as it stands, are going to be in the playoffs. So that thing's a really good thing overall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely that construction of those schedules are a key factor. Like you said, with Mid-North not having the strongest schedule as opposed to, some of those other teams, it'll be interesting. See, I'm going to hit that SJV game tonight. I haven't seen Mid-North yet, so I kind of want to get some eyes on and just kind of get a good feel for it to see where they're at. Because, there's a lot of – it's almost like right now where they're at is where SJV was 2 weeks ago, where there's so much hype around them. And I'm like, okay, let's see if the hype is real and let's see what they can do. So, but I mean, they got a balanced program. There's not anybody massively standing out as the guy that's carrying the team. So, it'll be interesting to see. With regards to Brick Memorial, for them moving forward, I think the biggest factor later in the season, kind of to Derek's point, is that cold weather stuff. So this is not a knock on Lahar. He's a great quarterback, but it'll be interesting to see how he kind of holds up on later in the season when
especially being a first-year quarterback.
Exactly. And
a first-year starting quarterback. Yeah. And then look, I know he had some time last year or whatever, but that's a lot different. Remember, now teams are preparing for you. You're not just coming off the bench because somebody rolled an ankle and you got to go, right? Now teams are going to prepare for you. They have a lot of tape, right? Guys study that stuff. Look, the kid's a tough little, dude, he's tough. He's good. He can he can run the ball too, which is going to help him. But, it's the end of the season, man. And guys are going to bring it, Yeah.
It's like that mentality. It's more of that mentality thing of, okay, when push comes to shove, are you going to execute in that moment?
Yep.
And are you going to be prepared for that moment? And, right now he's showing he is. So, that's why
that's what to go off.
It's just kind of, be curious to see. And I think, but Brick Memorial having some of those big defenders, having the tall midge type guys, that's going to be really what they need to lean on. They need to, if they can hold teams under 20 in the playoffs, that they should win.
Absolutely.
The Mid-South has, I think, a big game this week. I guess Jackson, on the flip side, there's a big game for them too.
Oh, so yeah.
2 programs that have been really good in recent years. This is like a game. The team that wins this can, I think, get their season back on track. So, I'm just looking at the schedule for both of them. Mid-South schedule after this is still pretty tough, but Jackson's schedule, if they did get a win here, could have a chance. They got a pretty tough schedule too. So those are both those teams, I would guess, are in a must-win situation coming in this week, and I guess maybe even from a playoff standpoint, and they're 12-13. So, I don't know how it's going to shake out because a lot of these teams are probably going to get in anyway. I think they're probably going to get in anyway, but it's definitely, I think, from a season standpoint, this game for both Mid-South and Jackson is a huge game.
Yeah, Mid-South is obviously the new coach and a lot of turnover on the roster. That
Right.
They were very, very senior heavy, a lot of talent. So, I think it really is just a rebuild year.
Yeah.
It's not a knock. It's just I don't expect to see much from them the rest of the year, and that's okay. They'll
Right.
get there.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, Jackson's one that's interesting because everybody was so high on them, and I love the Jackson culture. I love what Coach Mistretta does. Just that ground and pound, big on defense type stuff. And obviously with Jonah Glenn going down, that really changed the dynamic of the team and what they were relying on.
Right.
So, it not being overly balanced, but going into the season, even talking to him, he's like, yeah, we got a pretty young team. We're still
Right. I mean, they graduated a bunch of studs. I mean, the D'Alessandro kid and, a couple of those other guys, Ethan, a couple of those guys, right? Like, when those guys played for our club team, and believe me, like, we used to ask, like, how the hell with these guys on this roster, dude, like, how do they lose a game? Because some of those kids are pretty, like, they're all playing in college. I don't care what level it is. They're playing next level ball, and those guys are gone,
Yeah.
Also, how much is that
had that play of the year last year with that?
My God, which was kind of funny. And we talked to, like, I've said it to Dave, and I said it to a couple of people, and they're like, he came over the top to intercept a corner ball, right? Like, as a half field safety, or, he came off the hash and picked that thing off. Like, what a phenomenal play. One of, like, the plays of the year. But, like, we had seen him do that 3 or 4 times in 7-on-7, like, stuff where nobody knew that. And it was kind of like, oh, that's just Al being Al. And It was like everybody else, it was to them a wow play, which it definitely was. But we had seen him do that like 3-4 times before that, which is phenomenal. But you lose kids like that, not only on the field players, but, locker room culture in high school and locker room culture anywhere matters, right? So you kind of, a lot of those guys were captains, leaders, next man up mentality. Who's going to take the reins and kind of do that, right? And like you said, when you lose a player like Glenn, who's an absolute phenomenal running back, that changes the dynamics of a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do think Jackson will put it together this week against Mid-South, and kind of keep it going a little bit. But
okay.
But yeah, I mean, I just don't. I don't know. I don't see Mid-South doing much right now. They're just
I saw they had a big group of kids coming in the freshman class, and obviously that might be part of the turnover there. They're going to be younger probably in the beginning. The other thing that's hard is there probably has to be some little bit of a letdown, not purposely, but just a legend retires from your program. It's just, it's not, and it's nobody's fault. It's just how it is. It's just how it is. And you're the new coach, Coach Tomas, he's got to get his own identity in there. That's going to be a process because you had a guy that's been there 30 years, and not just been there 30 years, but been like ranked number 1 in the state, I think 2 times, right? Which is quite a feat for a public school in the modern era. And obviously won numerous state championships. So
that they did 35 in a row or 36 in a row back in the 406 range.
I mean, that was a huge run. And really since the 2000s, that's, when Bosco and when Toll basically came to Bosco, that's when the parochial thing it was always big in Northern, but it went through the roof as far as from players going there. So the fact that he was able to do it during that run. And then 2015, I think he was ranked, number 1 in the state. So I think that is, that's a tough thing to replace. And that will take a little bit of time, just because it's a different, no matter what anybody says, like, it's a different identity, and they're going to compare you in the first couple of years to the other coach. It's just, so once you get
automatically going to happen, right? Like we talked about, you can look at it at the highest levels when Joe Paterno left, when Bobby Bowden left, even this guy with behind Nick Saban, like he's doing a great job, but there's always going to be that,
a signature win does. So that was what I thought. That's what went to my mind. If you're relating like Mid-South to it,
you need a big win.
Alabama, DeBoer winning that game over Kirby Smart. Now, obviously, if he goes to lose 4 games, it won't matter. But him winning that game, probably alleviates a lot of the questions in the short run.
Because it at least buys him 2 weeks.
Definitely buys him 2 weeks. Obviously, if he loses to like an LSU or I don't know who they have in their schedule, but
don't screw up, buddy.
But I do think that those are the things that you kind of need, and I'm sure he's looking for that. And then RBC, it's hard for me to envision them not rolling, unless it's, to me, it's only going to increase the divide between because RBC is pushing the envelope, and what I mean by that is they want to compete with the the privates up north and at a high level. So obviously the game with Rumson is going to be a huge game next week, right?
Where is that game?
Do
we know?
Year at Red Bank this year. I think it was at Rumson last year.
Oh,
yeah,
Count
it's at Count Basie.
Basie. One of the greatest facilities in the state, Count Basie. Let's go! Yay! Sorry.
Well, they got that new field in there though. But
it's awesome that the press box is on the 40. You know, not even, you know what I mean. But whatever, it's okay. Short conference football. Let's go.
You're hating. So
I just hate on the facilities, guys. They love football, but like, can we get some upgrades?
Well,
to
that's
these
a town. I think that's.
I know, but these poor come on, man. Like these poor kids. They got to play on this stuff, and I know it adds to it and the grit, and that's why we're different or whatever you want to say. I'm sorry, guys. Facilities change everything, man. Like. You'll get 6 more kids to come out if you have a nice field. I'm sorry. Like, more fans come in, you get more money for whatever you want to do, dude.
I don't think it matters at RBC. I think you're wrong.
What do you mean?
I think
RBC is different. Private schools are different. Private schools.
Yeah, I'm talking about RBC. That obviously they should upgrade the stands at least eventually. I mean, they did upgrade the turf there, but
I'm sorry.
I've been to RBC games.
I know. Oh no. Private schools a little different, dude. And I look at look at SJV. Like they have there's tons of people at these games. Like, you know what I mean? But it's just because, private schools I think add a different element because you have a lot of, maybe parents or kids that are thinking about going to these schools and they want to see what's going on. When you're when you're a public, those kids are going to that high school anyway. So they could kind of hey, this is what it is. And I get it with money and all that other kind of things. But, I don't know. I'm just such a facilities type guy that I think there's so many just small little upgrades that teams could do or people could do to these facilities to really make them pop. And, I just feel like sometimes people just don't do it, whether it is what it is. I don't know. It's just something that kind of grinds my gears, I guess you could say.
Well, it's almost it kind of almost relates to conversations that I've been having recently where, as much as high schools don't want to realize it, there's a brand and the private schools understand that. So they're branding and they have the sports information people and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Cause even you that definitely on your end of just who do I go to get the information?
Yeah. And that's what's made us valuable over the years is you can come and find information. Obviously we're trying to upgrade that, but the thing is that was wild to me was I was at the RBC North game last year, one of the greatest games I've ever seen any level of sports. And the fact that it was raining a little bit and it wasn't packed there because North just doesn't draw a crowd. And I'm thinking, you have Micah Ford.
Yeah.
And
it just rushed for 100 yards at Stanford.
I know. And it's if you branded better and you actually leaned into that, you'd actually create something that would with Micah Ford, you should be packing everything. You should be
there should be people coming from out of state.
Out of state.
That's a slight exaggeration, but you know what I mean? It's when LeBron was in high school, how many of his games were there just random people there because they wanted to see, you know what I mean? Now that's on a different, on a different level. But look, I am sure that back in the day when no Sean Moreno was playing for South, that those games would have more people there because no Sean.
South and North games get good crowds. Yeah. They mid-north and
mid-south. And I'm sure, Dave, there's some schools that travel better or
I do think overall, branding of your program is something that a lot of schools are trying to figure out how to deal with and don't have the people to do it,
They're coaches.
Well, I don't even know even athletic department wise,
right. I think that's a great question, right?
Yeah, you have an athletic director, you go to a college or a big school like Bergen Catholic or Don Bosco that really has alumni maybe pouring in some more money into the program. They have someone they can assign that to. I mean, who is assigned to that? In public schools,
right.
Assistant coach who may or may not know how to do that.
There's nobody within an athletic department. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe there is. Maybe there is.
And then I'm sure.
But I think you could assign a student. I think though, Scott, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think that you could probably find a student
Oh
studying
God, yeah.
that probably could do it probably as well as any college, because just the kids now are so good at that stuff.
Yeah, like a marketing kid or something that wants.
It's just that you have to monitor a kid. You never know where they're going to go off the rails on it. You know what I mean? But I do think that that's a thing that can help any school in general. And I do notice it when I see the teams that do it. I do follow those teams because you get updates. I think in today's age, your high school athletic department, not just your football department, but your high school athletic department has to be putting out clips on your teams all the time.
Constantly.
Like a game, someone, even if you're filming it with your phone, someone's got to be up and down the sidelines at each game getting clips of each one of those games.
Everybody should have their own,
and that's got to be out on your feed, and that's got to be tagged to all the people that you need to tag to, because I think it makes a big difference for who decides to come to your school and why they come to school and the enthusiasm around your program. Young kids are involved in that.
Yeah.
No, I love you. I love everything you're saying, because you're talking my business plan right now. That's some of the stuff, like quite literally, we're working on programming elements that we can bring to schools. But to your point, you can't always trust a kid, but that's where we're going through.
But you can assign a teacher, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The media programs is what we're going through. So the teacher has the oversight, but then by building this platform, then more and more people can have access, so a kid can get something published on there. So that's or videos going on there. But the automation is the hardest part, because it just requires so much technology. But that's literally what we're building right now, is the ability to do that and almost provide, it's almost like I'm turning this into it's not a sports media business, it's a sports technology business. And we are legitimately having, we have some stuff built already that's not public yet, and we're building more. So you're talking up my book, so I love it.
No, and I think don't get me wrong, but if you look at if you want to take a college, let's just talk football, college football model, right? Every college has their own quote unquote media department or whatever, that they have full access to the team, right? They can interview guys, they can talk to coaches, they can do all this kind of stuff, right? So they're really getting the nitty gritty of it. Yeah. If you now come in and say you're ESPN, right? Well, you want to have a great relationship with that individual little media company within the school itself. Maybe company's not the word, but those guys that have that insider access and they do their own whatever over here. But now you're ESPN, you come in, and if you develop a really good relationship with each one of those, now you're going to get the content that maybe if you just come in on game day, you're not going to get. Right. So is that the type of model you're looking for? Almost like every little school will have their own little something where, look, you get a teacher to monitor that. Everybody has a media club. You know what I mean?
The teacher's the continuity, because the teacher is going to be there longer. And then, there's the relationship there. And it's all essentially one of it's just we'll have reps, local reps too. Yeah. That's kind of helping, where it's there's a professional oversight.
Right.
They still do what they need to do, but then. Right.
Hey, this is the way we need to do this aspect, or we should be doing this. It just kind of overseeing it. And then you could do that for every sport if you wanted to, you know what I mean? And that's then you got, how great would it be to just go to your site, click on whatever and see all of this content, yet those kids or that program from that school gets more of that credit. Dude, they can put that on college transcripts. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of level of stuff with technology that I think the quicker the shore gets to it, the more it will be, out there, because they're doing some of this stuff up north.
Yeah, no, I was talking with the shore conference, and we were trying to set stuff up, and it just, the bureaucracy of it all just got a little crazy. So it just had to get to the point of doing it myself and showing them. Yeah. And at some point they'll realize what I'm actually doing. People,
when they see it.
Yeah. People assume what we are and this and that. And it's not what I'm actually building. So they'll see it, they'll get it. Cause even, one of the things like that is I created what we called team pages, but really they're team rooms. And eventually some of that stuff can become automated, so the teams, if it's those media programs are tagging it properly on their YouTube, then that YouTube video automatically filters there, and those stats filter there, and those pictures and those everything filters in automatically. And now you can quite literally follow your own team because the school is doing it, but then there's still oversight to make sure, because everybody always told me, oh, this school won't do it or that one won't. Then we go in and we fill that gap. That's where we fill the voids.
Right. And then once they see it and be like, oh, wait a minute, like that's all I have to do. Like the foundation is set. All I have to do is plug this in and it gets shot out to all of these things. Yeah. Then you're going to see a lot of things start to change. I don't want to say it's like, hey, get with the times, but it's like, hey, let's change a thing or two. Okay.
There's a lot of antiquated stuff out there, and that's just not, it's building the community is really what I'm all about. So that's what we're going for. But I mean, I guess we can
and not just football, right? Like we know football is the biggest driver or whatever, but like these other sports down here deserve coverage too. You know what I'm saying? Like I've always been an advocate for, look, man, like the cheerleaders need some more love too. And the band, like these things are part of Friday nights that like, matter. Right. Like I've been at schools where there wasn't a band and it was just like a different type of atmosphere. All of this stuff like matters when you're talking about it, especially like, and look, we're talking football teams now, right? Like look at some of the best teams and look at what's outside of what you're just seeing on the field, right? Like how do they travel for away games, right? Or cheerleaders, band members, like just the whole, what goes around. Look at their social media pages. A lot of the teams that are kind of at the top do a great job with those things.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's
Dave knows marketing better than anybody, right? Like I've never been around a better head coach that does the marketing aspect of it and like that part of the making sure guys are like seen and all that kind of stuff. Like because he's built business after business after business, right? And the process is just there, And so I've seen him like do things with teams that it was so in the past, and just to like real quick change that and how it factored into like the success of the team and then the community that becomes built around it, because that's what parents want to see too. Like they want us to know that grandma and grandpa living in Arizona can click one thing easily and be like, oh, there's my boy or there's my grandson. That stuff all matters.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of pride too when you see your stuff like you want to. If nobody's paying attention, I'm not saying you're not motivated. You're still going to go out and play, but when you have to defend your name, even like publicly, because
like, and then you saw like
that's where I said,
you know what I'm saying? Like the more memes, that means you're doing something right to me. Like that's just kind of how it works, right? I mean, as much as it's like great to get recognition and stuff, like the haters are what they're going to click the most, like that's kind of part of it, man.
Well, I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago, I said a team that's going to be good. They're 5-0 right now, Central. And that was what I saw. Right. Those kids, man, like they were taking such pride in it, in all that stuff. And it was never, they weren't being like even super cocky. It was like, oh, we're going to war, or like all this kind of stuff. Like it was fun.
They're like listen, that's a team that needs to be talked about, like because they had a huge win against Southern. That's a bit, Southern is one of your more traditional powers within the shore itself. So even if they aren't the Southerns that have been, right, it's still a name, right? Like still, even like talk Mid-South. If you beat Mid-South, if you beat Mid-South, people are going to open an eye and be like, oh, you beat Mid-South, right? Yeah. So Central's a team that's just absolutely doing amazing things, right? They beat Southern. I believe it was like a last like drive type of situation. So they've won close games. They're going to be a team that's really going to, I believe. I mean, they have a couple things to take care of business, but they're a team that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, they that was at that game, so that was a fun one.
And that was at Central.
No, that was at Southern.
Okay, because Dave, we have a great game at Central, buddy. Right? Walk off, kick return to end it in 2019, brother. Like, what an atmosphere.
Central's schedule's a little light though, so.
No, it is. Like it is. They're built.
That's what I'm saying. They need to be, they got to take care of business and prove.
I'm not comparing Tom's River North by any means. Like,
no. Can you so the power ratings now? Can you explain it a little bit? Because it's been a few years, obviously, since it's been a few years since I've been in it. Like Central is number 6, right? But their OSI is very low, but they're 5-0. How much do these their power rating, like Millville has a very high one, Brick Memorial has a pretty high one. Manalapan, I guess, is similar to Central, but they have 2 losses in the right. But how does this, like, I don't really understand how it all works. Is it combination of PowerPoints and OSI? Is that what it is?
Well, there's like a formula that they have, and so the way it works, for instance, if you beat, so like the big one for Central was beating Southern because they're Group 5, so they get 5 points for that game.
Yes,
and
it's a freaking math problem, is what it is.
Exactly, but then because Southern was 4-0. They get residual points. But so say they beat Southern in week 1 and then Southern wins the rest of their games. Every time that Southern now wins, they get more residual power points that will keep growing what that is. So
that hasn't changed. The PowerPoint
no, that's still
the same.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the OSI is it an equal part like in the calculation, or do they add the PowerPoints to the OSI and that's how they get the overall rank? Is that what they do?
Well, the rankings just that they have, I mean, unless you're just talking about like a random like NJ.com ranking, that's just personal opinion.
No, I'm talking about the like the playoff rankings. I'm talking about.
It's just based off of how many PowerPoints you have. That's pretty much it. And in your group, like, so if you're
your power score, right? And your power, because I see, like, for example,
you have to New Jersey Gridiron, right? Like,
yeah, I'm on it.
Yeah. So that's really
if I'm adding the points, I think I got it. So they're basically your OSI, your OSI plus your PowerPoints,
correct,
is what your score is. So Central's okay. So I got it. So 40, they have 49.89.
And then remember, when it comes to the playoffs,
20,
right? Playoffs are 1 through 16.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but. So now, all right. So now I understand what their ranking is. So, so I think that helps the Shore Conference because we play a lot of the schools in the bigger schools play other bigger schools. So
correct.
One is going to be very valuable in most of the Shore Conference games because they're playing most of the like size schools. So we say Southern beat Highland Regional. I don't know much about. I don't think they're very good. Manchester, they beat Towns River South.
Well, Manchester's smaller than them.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at who they beat though. Okay,
they have the wins to go along with it, so it kind of balances out a little bit. It'd be like the same as if Manchester's undefeated now, and actually they just dropped to Group 2 last year.
Correct.
They were the smallest Group 3. They were 8-2 and didn't make the playoffs.
But now they're 5 seed at 4-1.
Exactly.
Is that because their OSI went up? Is that because their OSI went up?
Well, they also dropped to a Group 2, so now they're playing bigger schools.
They were Group 3 last year.
Yeah, that's part of this whole. You know what I mean?
They have a much higher OSI though. Their PowerPoints are good, but their OSI is high. So, right. Because that must mean their strength index is higher. Correct. Then like last year they must have had a low strength index.
Right. They didn't play very good teams. Right.
Got it. Okay.
So the gist of this whole thing is if you want to make the playoffs, play bigger, better schools.
Yeah. And you want schools and you want to play a school that's bigger and better, and you want to root for them to keep winning the rest of the time.
Right.
You want to beat I'm looking
to beat them and have them go undefeated.
Manchester. So this is the thing that I don't understand about like this whole thing. Manchester is the 5 seed right now, and Point Pleasant Borough is the 6 seed. Like, so it's really not like they're Point Pleasant Borough has a super high power index at 8363.
Right, but they have 2 losses.
They have 2 losses, right? So
that takes away from the power points, which takes away from the whole thing.
It'll balance itself out though in the end.
Because even though they're like a 6 seed, like when they break it down from 16 to 8-8 or 8-8, you know what I mean, or whatever it is, however they do that, and then the play, like when it plays out, like it'll all balance out. I
like
hate
RBC is the 12.
Right. Well, and remember, all the
behind Montclair Kimberly, who is horrendous, even though they're 5-0. Montclair Red Bank would beat Montclair Kimberly by 90 points. That's
what Scott was saying in the beginning, right? Like,
and St. Mary's
scores don't really matter because they've played great teams, even though they've lost by whatever. Like, when they get to the playoffs, doesn't matter.
I understand that, but I'm saying from a seeding standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense how this scoring is because St.
It
Mary's
gives guys false sense of what it is. Like, oh, this team's a 2, and it's like, dude, they've played no one.
Yeah,
That's
I'm saying though they shouldn't be ranked out. Like St. Mary's is 4-1 is the 6th seed. Like they're ahead of Vienna.
And then they're going to end up playing DePaul.
Is Catholic, Holy Cross, Red Bank Catholic, Notre Dame. They're ahead of all those. It's absurd.
Yeah, until they get to the playoffs, and then they get smoked by 70. So
yeah,
I know.
Like,
the ranking looks great. Good for you. Like,
I'm saying that the seeding wise, though, you want that to work out the right way. Is my point? Is that you want the best teams to have the higher seeds. So it seems like there's maybe potentially, and maybe it works out in the end. I don't know, but it seems like there's like a flaw in how not the PowerPoints. The PowerPoints are straightforward, but the OSI.
Like, I don't understand why that's even like a part of it.
I don't understand how it gets. I mean, I don't know.
This is what we got to do. What we got to do is we got to get John Fast from Gridiron, New Jersey.
Yeah, we need to get him on. Is that his system? Is it John's system?
He's the guy that came up with all of it.
Got it. Yeah, get John Fast on. I want answers.
I'll get him. He interviewed me like 8 times.
I want answers. I used to advertise it on
VHT radio, Scott.
Yeah, I used to advertise on it back
North
in the day.
Jersey, small little radio station. I've been in studio multiple times, fellas. Like, sorry, I got the cassette tapes to prove it. Like, let's go. Old school microphone.
Is there no WTIC anymore? Is there no?
I don't know. I'm gonna find out. We're gonna say, hey, John, hey, buddy, let's have a conversation.
Perfect. Scott, give me a couple final thoughts because I got to jump off. Derek, if you want to continue,
Derek digresses nonstop.
Yeah, let Scott get a couple final.
Fired up Friday, brother. Come on, fired up Friday.
Yeah, the other one I just want to kind of shout out is Manalapan because they have such a Philadelphia Eagles style fan base. They were calling for Coach's head after they were 0-2, and here now they're 3-2, and he's they're killing it right now. But it's like they wanted him gone. They're such a passionate fan base, but it's so much fun to watch them too. So I just want to shout Manalapan out because I want to see what they do. Great win. They're on some momentum right now. So let's see what they can do and kind of follow up on Manalapan in a couple of weeks too.
Perfect. All right. Well, Scott, we'll have you back on. And
definitely, buddy. Good talking to you always. Thanks, man.
As we get ready for playoffs to talk some more, really, then we get the nitty gritty and get some predictions going. I think there's going to be a few, at least a couple of state champions out of the short conference possibly this year. We'll see. So
yeah, I got a few predictions for you, but I'll keep them.
All right, go ahead, shoot them out.
Go quick.
Rumson, Point Borough, Toms River North.
We'll be champions. Come on, man! Like, okay, anybody could have said.
Yeah, but like that's the thing is. Calling it this early.
Yeah, it's early.
Okay.
Early, I got some others.
The Chiefs in the AFC finals. Like, okay.
No, I got some sleeper picks though for you later.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's right. That's good. That's great. All right. Thanks, well, Scott, we'll revisit in a few weeks. It's great having you on, man. Shore Sports Network.
Keep it up.
And we'll see you real soon. Keep building that sports technology company.
Hey, buddy.
That's it, man.
Bring it out of the ground. Bring it up.
All right. See you guys.
Take care, buddy. All right, man. Go do your thing.
All right. Well, I got to run.
I love what he's trying to build, dude.
What happened?
You can't fault him for trying to change things.
No, it's great. It's great.
I really hope it works out.
I think, I hope. I'm sure it will. All right, man. We're out.